Good morning, fellow sovereigns. So I'm just wending my way under a tree. Now, there was uh, um, some news yesterday, that most people are probably unaware because the national media perhaps forgot to report it. Two things. First is in South Dakota, the state legislature tried to redefine the definition of money. So it was put through under the pretense of the normal adjustment of regulations of banking rules and all of that, something that happens every 6 months. However, there was Section 19, I think it was, oh, here comes the train, whereby they were attempting to change the definition of money. Now, there were some senators who picked up on this and thought, this don't sound right. So it's a 110-page document, and this little clause was buried in the middle of it, and most politicians missed it. So what it was basically saying was, we're going off the money system, we're now going to go to a digital currency whereby the government controls it. So it's going to be no longer it's going to be pieces of paper and coins. It's not going to be anything in your bank account. It's not even a currency, it's simply software. And if you don't follow the rules, someone, somewhere, can push a button and there goes your money. And they are now one of the many things that is happening. I'm not doing this as a scare because it's actually good news, but just to give background, so there's no need to sort of panic and rush off and tell the world. And one thing they're doing, for example, is they're now registering every gun owner with a national register, and that's connected to this digital currency. So that if you buy too many guns, or you buy guns, I don't know, and you're not supposed to, they will be able to push a button and there goes your money through this digital currency. So they're bringing it in slowly, in a sense of they're picking on guns at the moment, and they'll be moving that to other things, and eventually there'll be groceries and so on, as it is right now in China. So if you buy too much alcohol in China, you lose social credit points, and you lose privileges, like the ability to go on public transport and stuff. So that's moving now into the Western world. So the first news item was that in South Dakota they tried to push through, unsuccessfully, this new definition of currency, which takes away all of the power from the individual on their own money and gives it to the state. And there's over 20 other states in America where identical legislation is about to be introduced over the next 2 weeks, I think it is. So that's just a little change that's going on. The other little thing that happened yesterday was that for the first time in recorded history, every single bank in the world went into the red. Every bank. None of them have got any money. They've all got minus money. They all owe money to someone else. And it just seems to be quite interesting timing. And if I go back to the global picture, so I've talked about the change from the Aryan era, which was basically up to about Christ, a little bit before that, and then Christ kind of not brought in, but he was at the start of the Piscean era, and now we're moving into, or we've probably moved into, the Aquarian era. So quite different ways of being. Moving from acceptance of freedom to moving to fighting about freedom. And now freedom doesn't even exist. It's not even a word in the Aquarian age. It's just there. It's the water we live in, that we bathe in. So you can't even describe it. So that's for another time. But all I'm saying is there's many different ways of measuring time. No, there's many different cultures who have the same measurement of time. That's a better way of putting it. So whether you're talking about the Mayan one, which they their big time is the Baktun, which is about 2,460 years, I think, something like that. And that's identical to the Tibetan one, which is pretty much similar to the Hopi one. So the Hopi one, they don't call it ages, they call it worlds. So we're coming into the world of heart right now, we're in it. And so the other one is the Chinese one. And so the Aryan era, which finished a bit over 2,000 years ago, about 2,400, the Aryan, that kind of related to the Chinese one, which was the green yang period. And that was characterized by green being water. And of course we all know about the flood of Noah and the 100-year flood of the reign of Emperor Wu. And so it was an era of everything was based on water and emotions, and I won't go into that because that was a long time ago. And then the last one in the Chinese philosophy was the red Wang period, which is characterized by fire. And never before in the history of human existence, activity, have we had so many wars, arguments, and it kind of relates to the Piscean, where you've got two fish swimming in opposition to each other. It was a very fiery, it was a very competitive era when we invented gunpowder and everything else that explodes and kills people, and it was a very fiery. There'd be more volcanoes and earthquakes in this 2,500 year era than any other in the history of the world. And so now we're moving into what the Chinese call the White Yang era, or the White Yang period. And the white is symbolized by the invisible. And so that's, exemplified obviously by the internet. So we're now starting to move away from things that are wrought by fire, because every building is being wrought by fire, if you like, steel, and all of the metals and everything that's been made, and even timber is made by metal saws. And so fire's been the creation, whereas now it's the invisible. And the other one obviously is intuition. So it is now time that we are now starting to wake up and listen to our inner wisdom. I don't know how that's working with the light. So we're now moving into the White Yang period, which is simply about things being, the unseen is now starting to be seen. Not necessarily with our visible eyes, but with our knowing eyes. And so all of those things that have caused fire, i.e. wars or whatever, and most money that's been made over the last 2,500 years has been from wars. So fire has been the greatest producer of wealth in the last period, 2,500 years. So that's moving away. So it's no wonder that the banking systems are falling apart. And so some people, I guess, I don't know, there's probably more, but I see sort of three groups of people going, well, it's not really happening, you're just making it up, conspiracy, I don't care, that's fine. There's probably another group that's realised it's happening, and I'm happy to send you the links to both the fact that the banks are all in the red and the South Dakota decision. So just message me. It is happening. And so some people are realising it's happening and going into horror. How are we going to survive without money and all that stuff? And then there's a third group that are realising it's happening and going, finally, thank God it's happening. So there's going to be a range of reactions to this. Denial, horror, glee. And I guess there's going to be a continuum in there as well. Just basic confusion and what's going on. All I can say is, if we're looking at the bigger picture, whether it's the Mayan Baktun periods, the Chinese Yang, now moving into the White Yang, invisible, all the astrological ones, or the Tibetan one, or the Hopi one, any of them, they all fit together. The Hindu one is the same. So all I can say is it just fits with those. That it's a natural occurrence of the development or the evolution of the world. Now, there's many species that are going and we're trying to stop them go. And there's many species coming. That's not being publicised. So it's simply a change. So we're evolving out of authorities, because authorities were very physical beings in a sense of massive buildings and organisations and systems and whatever, industrial plants and political buildings and structures and rules, and so there was a lot of visible stuff. The visible stuff is going to go, and what we're going to be ruled by, or what we're going to be moving into as a way of being, is simply connecting with each other, connecting with ourselves, connecting with our own inner knowing. And I heard somebody say the other day that, was it healthy businesses are moving away from investing in land to investing in people. It's kind of a similar thing. And there's, I don't know if you're noticing it, but there are more and more people just linking up somehow. Obviously the internet's helping, and we may criticize Facebook, but it's providing an amazing resource for helping people get together to share information, and it's all, if you like, through the invisible. There's no movement of goods, it's movement of information. We're going back to the invisible, and it's about information, and our sustenance and our beingness will not be based on how many things we've got, how many toys. Just going to turn this around to, this is my view of the world in this moment, down by the harbour. And so all of these things will stop being owned. We'll become the kaitiaki, as the Maori say. We'll become the guardians of the world. We won't own stuff. We will certainly benefit from it in all sorts of ways. And it won't be controlled, as Klaus Schwab said, you will own nothing and be happy. We won't own anything perhaps, but it will be constantly available to us. And it won't be controlled by one organisation, the World Economic Forum, as is his dream. So the idea of ownership will drift away, but it will be done in a very natural, reassuring way, shall we say, and we'll go back to perhaps the old a tribal situation or a tribal mentality, but with the benefit, well, with the advantage now of technology. So we'll still have the internet in some way, and maybe that will drift away as we develop our intuition, as we develop our invisible resources. We may not need to message people. We'll just do it intuitively, and we can talk to people. I mean, some people, we do this now. We have these conversations without technology. So just the idea that, I guess it's interesting that the whole thing of the bank thing, two major, probably the most significant events in banking history have gone unreported, because there's two sides to that. Part of the media perhaps doesn't believe it's really happening and can't see the significance. The other part is so horrified they can't absorb the idea that the banking system will not be here soon. We will not need to exchange fire-wrought money. We'll exchange what's needed as per the Aquarian simple giving. And so in these days of the fires, and it's almost like, let's say, it's like a wart or a pimple. They start as this tiny, almost unnoticeable little blemish. Then they grow and grow and grow and grow, and the worst bit is the moment they're about to explode and go. And so the fire, the red yang period, is in that situation now. It's in its most insane, it's like a death throw. And the more insane that it gets, the closer it is to the end. So we can take massive relief from the insanity that's going on, because we know that signifies the end and the birth, the gentle birth of a new and invisible world that people are starting to see with different eyes. And so I wish you the opening of your new eyes. And I bless you and all who sail in her.